Green Bay Packers quarterback Jordan Love is one of the biggest winners of the preseason. Why? We explain on this episode of the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Marcus Mosher and Kate Madjuk.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. And joining me today, as always, is Kate Madjuk. You can follow her on Twitter at Kate Madjuk. Kate, today we are talking about the biggest winners and losers from the quarterback position in the preseason. I got to say, Jordan Love appears to be one of the biggest winners. Why do you think that's the case?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think there's much more you probably could have asked of Jordan Love. Finished the preseason with 193 passing yards, didn't throw any interceptions, which was good. But what I like to see was some of that involvement as a rusher, 32 rushing yards on 5 rushing attempts over the course of the preseason. Seems to be in a rhythm. It's targeting Luke Musgrave, rookie tight end out of the 2023 draft class. Very heavily through the preseason. Seems like there's a bit of a connection there as well. I think my expectations were so low. Jordan Love didn't blow me out of the water necessarily. It's not like, he was, QB1 necessarily in what we saw. But I think overall what we saw is that like this offense is going to be fine with Jordan Love. And I think that was like an important sort of prove it moment is, can this offense execute well with Jordan Love? 3 passing touchdowns. Generally not like a big, not necessarily a big showing, but I think he proved that the skilled position players that he's going to be playing with in this however long he gets as the starter. I like what we saw. He looked confident. He looked calm, composed. And again, that rushing potential on the ground is something that makes you feel kind of good about, if Jordan Love is maybe your like QB2, QB3 in a super flex league, like you might get some playing time out of Jordan Love in your fantasy lineups.
I know that he's a super flex quarterback for me in one of my leagues, and I feel really good. And it's just because I was really worried that without Aaron Rodgers, that this team was just going to be a disaster on offense. And that's clearly not the case. Now, we'll see what the ceiling is and what the kind of week-to-week consistency is. But I just have a hard time believing like this is going to be a dumpster fire of an offense that's unable to get the ball to the playmakers. Like, if there's one takeaway from the preseason, it's that I think Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs and Luke Musgrave and the running backs are going to be fine. Well, again, we'll see the ceiling. We'll see what the upside is, but they're all going to be fine.
Yeah, and I think that for where they're being drafted right now, all of these assets in the Green Bay offense, they've generally been sort of faded for, the fact that we didn't know what this Packers offense was going to look like. I think we can feel a lot more comfortable and start moving these assets up our draft boards a little bit more with the knowledge and the insight that we've gleaned here so far in the preseason from Jordan Love.
I will also say now, while they didn't connect down the field, Christian Watson did get a lot of deep targets from Jordan Love. So that's one of the things I wanted to see. Like, was Jordan Love going to be aggressive and throw the ball down the field? And the answer is absolutely yes. They still got to work on the timing and that connection there. But I do anticipate Jordan Love being somebody who is aggressive and not just a dink and dunk, try to be a high percentage quarterback. I think he's going to be aggressive by nature.
Yeah. And if, this offense and this, kind of scheme that we've seen deployed in Green Bay can translate well to Jordan Love, they can limit those turnovers despite still having those big play potentials. This could be really huge in terms of dynasty value. And I'm kind of excited to see where this team goes, even though like the Green Bay Packers, they just generally feel kind of vanilla. But like,
Yeah.
I don't know. What we saw here throughout the preseason, you've got to be nothing but encouraged here with what you've seen.
We have another winner that we want to mention. We've talked about this player, ad nauseum in the preseason so
Yeah.
far, but Sam Howell has to be one of the biggest winners because, first of all, name the starter, which I don't think you and I were all that worried that he wasn't going to win that job, but he did do that. And for the most part, looked pretty good in the preseason. We saw him play well against the Ravens in week 2 of the preseason. We saw him using his legs. I think he's somebody who has, he's a high upside QB2 in your Superflex leagues.
Yeah, I don't think there's been probably any winner as big as Sam Howell this preseason. And, again, that comes on the back of, honestly, like I think the most progression we've seen is his upside as a passer. I don't think any of us had questions necessarily about what he could bring potentially in the run game. But he looked fantastic, completed over 75% of passes, averaged 7.2 yards per attempt, no picks, 3 touchdowns, and just looked really poised. And we know he's got some talented receivers there in that Washington offense between Jahan Dotson, Terry McLaurin, who is banged up at this point. But like this, pairing that rushing upside with the floor, I think that we saw, from Sam Howell as a passer, can't understate the amount of winning that Sam Howell did this offseason.
Yeah,
And he
no.
wasn't even active for week 3 of the preseason,
Yeah,
which tells you they want to put this guy in a bubble and save him, make sure there's no more injury risk after what they saw with McLaurin.
Now, I was gonna say that's the only bummer about this whole situation for Sam Howell in the preseason is that Terry McLaurin got banged up. Seems unlikely that he'll be ready to play by week 1. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a multi-week absence for Terry McLaurin. That's their best offensive weapon. But again, we're talking dynasty here. I think long term, just the overall value for Sam Howell has shot way up because it does feel like there's something here, right? And it feels like whenever he starts, he's going to be somebody that has a shot to have 45 rushing yards, 200 plus passing yards, and with all those weapons, maybe Washington's a pretty decent offense this year.
Yeah, and I think the biggest hesitancy on Howell going forward in Dynasty is obviously that draft capital selected in the 5th round, but I think like based on what we've seen, it like Sam Howell had been graded out as a 1st round prospect. I really liked him a lot. Like obviously had some things to come clean up coming out of UNC, but he's young. He's not even 23 years old yet. Going to see a birthday here in the next couple of weeks, but like so young, has a lot of upside. And if he can keep this up, especially with Eric Bieniemy at OC. Sam Howell can be the long-term solution for this team at quarterback. And if he is, man, did they get a steal in the 5th round, but man, do fantasy managers get to buy into his discounted price because of that lack of draft capital.
What do you get a 23-year-old starting quarterback in the NFL for a birthday present?
I don't know. How high can we draft him for fantasy? I feel like that's the best gift of all that we can give
somebody
him.
Takes him in the 1st round of his home league, right?
Yeah, by starting to put some respect on his name. That is the best birthday present we can get. Sam Howell is putting respect on his name and starting to respect the fact that, despite that real life NFL draft capital, this could be one of the budding stars that takes over this league. And I'm so excited for him and the weapons he's surrounded by.
Coffee is always a good answer for me, but that's for me.
I'll never say no to a cup of coffee.
Exactly. All right, let's talk about some of the biggest losers from the quarterback position in the preseason next. This episode is brought to you by Underdog. August is here, and you know what that means. It is the official start of fantasy football drafting month. Get championship ready for your home league by trying out Best Ball on Underdog Fantasy. All you do is one live snake draft, no waivers, no trades, and Underdog will set your best lineup every week. Try it out with Underdog's Best Ball Mania tournament. The largest fantasy football contest of all time is back, and it's even bigger with $15 million of total prizes up for grabs, including an absurd $3 million going to the winner. Last year, the winner actually drafted their team in July, so don't wait around. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com or find them in the App Store and sign up with promo code LOCKEDON to get your first deposit doubled up to $100. That is Underdog Fantasy promo code LOCKED ON. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football podcast everydayers. On tomorrow's show, Matt and Ryan are going to break down the biggest winners and losers from the running back position during the preseason. Make sure you tune in for that. Okay, let's talk about a loser at the quarterback position. You have Deshaun Watson. I'm curious to hear your case here.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me, like there wasn't a whole lot wrong with Deshaun Watson's game, right? He he played fairly clean football. But I think what makes him a loser in my mind is just kind of a lack of um general aggression. I feel like we haven't seen the same kind of spark that has been what's kept him lingering, in the top 10, top 12 dynasty quarterbacks. Managers have been holding on to Deshaun Watson because of that upside. Now we've seen some of that mobility, which is of course made him, so special, so valuable for fantasy. But I don't think we've seen that kind of upside as a passer that we've been, so accustomed to. He hasn't looked overly special. And maybe that's like not you know, like that's totally the eye test. He was fine again as a passer, but I think in terms of upside, I'm just wondering what is the upside for Deshaun Watson. Completed 8 of 13 pass attempts, 104 receiving yards, or 104 passing yards, one touchdown. But he didn't feel like he had that oomph, Marcus.
Well,
He
I'll tell you what it was for me, because I had the same takeaway. He didn't play poorly, because if you watch the throw that he had to David Njoku for the touchdown, that was
yeah.
an incredible throw. He had to play last week against Kansas City, where got outside the pocket on a third down, scrambling, making a play with his legs, finding Amari Cooper down the field for like a 50-yard gain. Awesome. But everything else just felt so clunky for Cleveland on offense. A perfect example is twice in the first quarter of that game, Watson was running a read option with the running back, and they fumbled the ball. Like they just mishandled the snap or the action twice. Then there was other plays where he ended up going the wrong way on a boot action, and he got hit. There's a couple times he had to throw the ball away. It's clear that he's still really talented, that he's still a fantastic athlete. I wonder about this fit with Kevin Stefanski. Like, I think Deshaun Watson is at his best when he is improvising and he's making plays and he's getting outside the pocket. But a Kevin Stefanski offense is not too dissimilar to like a Kyle Shanahan's offense, where it's very structured, easy reads, play action, high-low stuff. We want you to play within the system. I think they're going to eventually figure it out. But as of right now, it looks a lot like what we saw last year, where there's flashes of brilliance, but it's still play in and play out. It just looks so weird.
I think that's actually like the word you used, I think, was clunky. I think that sort of is maybe a better way of trying. Like nothing looked like easy and smooth for
Nothing looked
Deshaun
crisp on
Watson.
offense. Like it wasn't like, hey, here's
Yes.
4 straight completions with guys, catching on the run. It's great pass, and then it's a ball in the dirt, and then it's one high, and then it's a nice play down the sideline to Donovan Peoples-Jones. It's just, I want to see some consistency there.
Yeah, I just for a guy that we've seen again be so special as a passer in this league, in addition to what he's provided, as a rusher, I guess I had kind of expected that we would see a little bit more from Deshaun Watson, just with that knowledge that he finally had, in off season.
Yep.
He's hopefully cleaning things up in his personal life, but I kind of expected that we were going to see just I guess more of those flashes than we've seen over the last season. And
I'm not panicking yet, but I'm also not. There's nothing from the preseason that makes me want to go out and buy Deshaun Watson in my super
exactly. And I think that was kind of that was kind of what I was looking for from Deshaun
Yep.
Watson, right? Like was just there's so much there are so many moving pieces here in the preseason that it makes it hard for you to evaluate really any player on just a pure basis, right?
Yep.
But like I wanted to at least see something that reminded me of the Deshaun Watson of
Sure.
yesteryear, and I didn't see it. And that was like, this is it's preseason, right? Like you don't have everybody on the field, you don't have all the starters involved. Like that was kind of an opportunity for Deshaun Watson to maybe like beat up on these defenses a
Yep.
little bit. And you just didn't see that. And that it's more of a loser by omission,
Sure.
if that makes sense. Again, you didn't see anything wrong, but is he still Deshaun Watson? I haven't seen anything to this point that makes me think that he is.
Kate, just one more loser from the preseason for me. It's Will Levis, and this not entirely his fault. Will Levis got a little bit banged up. Played the first preseason game. We didn't see him in weeks 2 and 3. The reason why he's a loser for me is because I thought Malik Willis, who got some extra reps because Levis was out, looked really good and looked really competent and looked improved. And now to me, it just feels like Malik Willis is going to be the number 2 quarterback on this offense going into the season. Ryan Tannehill, obviously the starter. And then if everything goes well for Tennessee, Will Levis doesn't see the field. And that's just another year that we have to wait on Will Levis and his dynasty value and not knowing if he can play or not. This is already somebody who was a 24-year-old rookie coming out of Kentucky who needed more playing time. I just wonder, like, you can't sell Will Levis now because nobody's buying, but if you did draft him fairly high in your super flex leagues, like I just wonder how long before he becomes a useful fantasy quarterback, if it ever happens.
Yeah, and honestly, Marcus, on the back of that, we should probably acknowledge, Trey Lance and what dynasty value he lost.
Nope.
Due to a similar, I know I don't know. Let me introduce you to your
Oh yeah,
probably third string quarterback
definitely
for the
third string
Dallas Cowboys.
quarterback. Yeah,
From a similar standpoint, though, from a situation that kind of holding on to Trey Lance, hoping that he would go to an offense where he might get some increased opportunities. Dallas is not the offense that he's
no,
going to see any chance or any kind of live reps, anything like that. Like it was probably, I think, of all the teams he could have gone to, the worst circumstance.
for him to
But
play right away. For him to play
yes,
right away, because I do think there's a chance. I do think this is a good spot for him to sit and develop because, yes, it's the Dallas Cowboys, and yes, there's a lot of attention on him. But once the season starts and like the Cowboys are actually playing games, nobody's going to think about Trey Lance. Nobody's going to care about Trey Lance, which is great for him. Now he can get 100% healthy, rework his mechanics, and then let's see where we're at next offseason and how he looks, and maybe another team will come by.
I think that's fair, but in terms of, being kind of stuck, for, a player that needs reps, right? Like needs there is no substitute for live game reps. For a player that needs live game reps, he couldn't have landed in a
That's
worse
fair.
spot.
And
Um,
he's somebody whose dynasty value has just cratered over the last, several months. And we knew that he wasn't likely going to be the starter this year anyways, but I think a lot of people were hoping that he would eventually get a shot in San Francisco or they would trade him to a quarterback needy team. Just not the case at all.
No, super, super bummed for Trey Lance, but again, hopefully, this does provide him some opportunity to just like improve on himself as a
Yes.
player. But I do think that he's kind of in this bucket now, despite the fact he's only 23 years old, which is absolutely insane.
That's why I'm still a little bit optimistic, right? Like go to Dallas, get with, I think Mike McCarthy can develop quarterbacks. We've seen that in the past. Work on your technique, work on your form. And then even if you play out this rookie deal, you're going to be 25 years old, 2-3 years removed from a major injury with some better coaching. Maybe I'm still optimistic that he can become a starting level quarterback in time.
2 years ago, to the month, Marcus, Trey Lance was drafted on average as the QB9 in dynasty startups based on upside alone,
Eh,
baby. Talk
we,
about a dynasty loser.
yeah, we might have been involved in that a little bit in a startup dynasty league. Okay, let's talk about another interesting quarterback situation going on in New England. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Gametime is the fastest and the easiest way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over tickets and start getting hype for the fun that you'll have. I use them to go buy tickets to the Bills games, which are just so close to me. I was actually on the app yesterday looking at Bills Buccaneers, a Thursday night game. It's so nice because you can even see like the picture of where your seats will be, so you won't be surprised when you get there. You can buy tickets in a matter of seconds, two taps, and you're in. Tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through your email. I know that always stressed me out, having to scroll through all my email when I'm getting in line to go in. You don't have to worry about that. It's right in the app. Snag the tickets without the stress of Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Term supply, but again, that is create an account, redeem the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Kate, finishing up here on some of the winners and losers from the quarterback situation. I want to go to New England, where there's a clear winner and loser here. The winner is Mac Jones. Only had 12 dropbacks in the preseason. Looked really good. Led New England to a touchdown drive. Saw New England running a bunch of RPOs and play action, which just suits his game so well now that Bill O'Brien is calling plays. And then on the flip side, Bailey Zappi, who we started to see his dynasty value kind of increase at the middle of the year last year. And even over the summer, he was dreadful in the preseason. I mean, just not good. He was 59 dropbacks, 30 of 51 for 250 yards, one of Pro Football Focus's lowest graded quarterbacks. I think any talk of a potential quarterback battle or competition here is clearly over.
Yeah, I think honestly, going totally off the field, right? I think we heard a lot of buzz in it coming out of the Patriots locker room about Mac Jones kind of losing confidence, and that being kind of an issue that seemed to be a big part of his struggles last season. It came off a really successful rookie campaign. Going into year two, you kind of expected him to take that leap forward. Suffered an injury, wasn't totally healthy. But generally speaking, especially given the slower start he got off to, then how good Bailey Zappi looked, it seemed like the narratives coming out of the Patriots camp here was that Mac Jones really struggled with confidence. And if anything, I do think that this preseason showing from Bailey Zappi, those struggles, the lack of productivity, I think having that quiet some of that narrative that there's a guy ready to jump him for the job. I think that can be really helpful just in terms of confidence, which we know is so important to the quarterback position as a whole. Really, really intrigued to see. Now, I think the bigger question for Mac Jones, now it's a fantastic thing just to have a starting quarterback in your super flex
I mean, you're
spot, right?
probably
Like,
not starting him unless you really need him in a super flex league, but it's for everybody else. I just think Mac Jones gives you so much more upside. If you have Juju Smith-Schuster or you have Hunter Henry or Mike Gesicki, I just think he gives you way more value.
yeah, I definitely agree there. And honestly, I would say that this is probably, I think that the addition of Juju Smith-Schuster might be one of like the more underrated ones. I think Juju is a guy that can really suit the play style of Mac Jones pretty well. I think he's one of these guys that can be just a relatively safe player to help him move the chains, establish a rhythm as a
Sure.
passer. I feel like these two could complement each other in terms of their play style pretty well. Um, I like that fit there. And I think that Juju could be a little bit of a difference maker for Mac Jones in terms of setting, setting the stage, setting the field. I think he's one of the better receivers that Mac Jones has played with to this point in his career so far. There could be something there that helps him to elevate that game a little bit. But again, I keep going back to this point that confidence is probably at the highest point
Yep.
we've seen since his rookie season, and that can be a huge difference maker.
Yeah, I think this New England offense is going to be a lot better than what people expect because it was so bad last year. Now you get a functional, and I think a good offensive coordinator in Bill O'Brien. You get a much more confident and healthy Mac Jones. I wouldn't be surprised if there's multiple pass catchers in this offense that have week to week fantasy value. And Mac Jones, we saw as a rookie, 24 touchdowns. I don't know if he gets back to that number because New England likes to run so much at the goal line. But if he's throwing 25 touchdowns and he's getting close to 4,000 passing yards, whether you like it or not, that's a super flex, QB2 that you feel pretty solid about every single week. So I just wanted to make sure that we included Mac Jones as one of the quarterbacks that we're talking about today, because I think he won the not that there was a battle, but he separated himself so much from another contender, maybe more than any other quarterback in the preseason.
Yeah, I think that's fair. For as much maybe lack of upside that Mac Jones might have, like 3 games over the past 2 seasons with 3 or more passing touchdowns, several games with more than 300 passing yards, like there's something to be had there.
Sure.
Especially if you're like particularly weak at the quarterback position in a super flex league. I think Mac Jones is a fine trade target. He doesn't hold a ton of value, but again, like you said, separated himself pretty clearly from the pack here.
Yep.
In a way that could be meaningful both for Mac Jones and his value and his standing with this franchise long term, but also the value of the assets on the receiving end.
All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen every day. Again, everydayers Matt and Ryan will be back on Tuesday and Wednesday to talk about running backs and wide receivers from the preseason. Kate, you and I back on Thursday to talk about tight ends. And then we're going to do a little bit of a special show on Friday answering some of your Twitter questions. So make sure that you send them in. We are free and available on all platforms. Go check out our show on YouTube. We post shows every single day over there. Go follow Kate on Twitter at Kate Majuk. I'm at Marcus _Mosier. And we'll see you right back here again tomorrow.